Alright, so today I really only had time to play one game. Well, I didn't have time to play one game, but I really only felt like playing one game because it's 12:41 as of the time of this video being made, and I really had to talk about this awful, awful game that I played, and it ended up being a draw. This is likely against what I consider to be the worst player I've ever come across at this level of play at chess, which is why it's so upsetting to me. Uh, but the match started off with me being white, um, c3. You probably could have guessed that from my queen's knight opening. So he opens up rook here, so I open up the same, sort of trying to threaten this. He moves his knight, and so I go ahead and threaten this rook right here, and so he does the right thing and moves this pawn, although it probably would have been better to move the bishop. So I start moving up my pieces, and he starts moving up his, and so I sacrifice my knight here so that he can take it, and then I can use my bishop to take his rook, putting me up 2, and then he proceeds to check. So I go ahead and threaten, he moves back, and I retreat my bishop, and I'm now looking at this area right here, so I move up my, after he moves his knight to the corner for whatever reason, I go ahead and move my queen right here, and he moves his queen. And so at this point, I'm just thinking this guy is not very good. This is only the 9th move, and I'm up 2, and I'm about to be up 3. There's not really a lot he can do about it either. So I go ahead and take it, and he moves his bishop, and I move mine back, and we trade. From here, I make my first blunder that I end up hating myself for, but one thing you're going to see in this game is there are a lot of blunders that I make that are completely unpunished, which it makes it all the worse when I end up drawing this game. So here he offers a trade of queens, and I do not want to trade this queen. So there's not really a lot I can do here if I don't want to trade the queen. I did not realize, for whatever reason, because I'm an idiot I suppose, that by retreating my queen, I am opening it up to a free take of the rook, and then proceeding to take my knight, and there's nothing I can do about it. He did not see this, however, in some strange reason, so he moves his knight instead, so I go ahead and move up my pawn. And then he goes ahead and moves his rook right here, because I do not think about the fact that he can move his knight right here, and then if I take my pawn, he takes my rook. He did not see this either, and so for whatever reason, he moves his rook to h6. From here, I go ahead and take with my bishop, which he did not see, putting me up an additional 2 points. Then I threaten his knight, he moves his knight back, and I start to push with my queen. He checks me with his bishop, which means I have to move my king. It's the only thing that can protect because everything else is kind of blocked off, so I can no longer castle this game. And then he moves his bishop right here, trying to lock me off on this from moving on the C or the D file this direction. From here, I check the king, he moves it back, and I take the knight because he did not think to defend it. He moves his queen up, likely once again trying to trade queens. I threaten his bishop, he pulls it back and threatens the queen, so I take the pawn that it was protecting, and he moves the queen, offering a trade. This time I accept, and he moves his bishop there, and I move my queen's rook to f1, so I can start pushing this pawn up, because now we're getting to the late game, and I want to start getting things done. From here, he missed an opportunity again, because as soon as he moves this rook down here, after doing this is a blunder right here, because now he can move his rook right here, put me in check, I have to move my king, and he takes the rook. Once again, he did not see this, did not punish it, and so when he takes with his pawn, I take with my rook. It doesn't matter anyway, because that's another idiotic move, because he puts me in check, and I have to move up. Unfortunately, once again, he does not punish me, he does not take this rook for whatever reason, he takes the pawn. Don't ask me why. And so I double stack my rooks on the F file, and he takes and threatens my rook. I put the king in check, he moves up, and so I move my rook to put the knight in threat. He moves to put me in threat, and so I put him in threat again. He does so again to this rook, which ends up being a blunder because I just check him and then take his bishop. He makes another blunder by moving his knight to defend the king right here, and so I just move right here, pinning it. So when he has to move, inevitably move his pawn, I go ahead and take, putting him in check. At this point, a couple more moves, check, check. And so at this point, it seems pretty obvious that I'm going to win this match. Of course, that's not the case because I'm an idiot. So he takes pawn, I block the pawn, I move the pawn up. I'm trying to clear pieces, which I probably shouldn't have done because as soon as it gets to this point, I move from here to here. This is unfortunately stalemate uh, because this pawn is blocked and he cannot move anywhere whatsoever, and so the game ended in a draw. I was very upset with myself after this, but unfortunately that's the way it is, and these kind of games have to be analyzed.